everybody, welcome to Dramguard. I figured it would be a good idea to kick this channel off with a video where we try to isolate what is the best value bourbon out there. And I wanted this to be a bourbon that is obtainable, it's available no matter where you are in the States. I wanted it to be something that any one of these five is probably something you could go to the grocery store, find most of these bottles, go to your local liquor store, and almost all of these should be available. So that's really the goal here. If you're just coming into bourbon, maybe you just want something to sip casually at home, hey, what's the best value bourbon that's going to be under $30 that you can just pick up on the fly, kill a bottle, and not feel guilty about it? And so these are the ones that I picked. There is one omission I want to address real quick, and that is early times. I left early times out because a couple of reasons. One, depending on your state, it can be really hard to find. I will tell you that for the value, it is a fantastic bourbon. You cannot go wrong getting early times as a under $30 bourbon. But a couple of factors. One, depending on your state, it might be very hard to find. In my case, here in West Michigan, it is a challenge to find early times. I got to call around. I got to find out what stores have it available if I'm going to grab a bottle. The other thing is that they recently underwent a change of ownership. So they're now with Sazerac. And so there's a little bit of disagreement in the bourbon community as to whether the flavor profile has changed, and even if it's going to change further down the road as Sazerac starts to bottle more of their own make for early times. So there's a little bit of, I guess, gray area there. So for that reason, I excluded it. We'll probably come back to early times. Maybe we'll even do a comparison of a Sazerac bottle and then, previous ownership bottle too. But for now, that one's off the table. These are the five that we landed on that I'm going to be doing a blind tasting of. This is the goal. These are the ones I think are going to be the top 5 value picks, and I'm going to pick the number 1. I'm going to rank these 1 to 5, but I'm going to do so as a blind. It's not a true blind because I know what 5 bottles are represented here. I mean, for an authentic blind, I'm not going to know any of the bottles. I'm not even going to be able to see the color on the whiskey. So it's not going to be an intense blind in that regard, but I am going to have my wife pour a sampling of all 5 of these, and she will write down which one is which on a piece of paper, fold it up and kind of put it up here in a mug, and I won't look at it, and take these all off the table. And so I'm not going to know what's in each Glencairn. I got 5 of these lined up, ready to go. We'll do a blind taste. We'll talk about what we smell, what we taste, what sticks around, and we'll rank which one of these is the absolute best under $30 bourbon. Let's do it. I'm going to step out of the room. Woo! This is the fun part. At least for me it is. So here we go. We got I don't know which one's in which. It's actually kind of cool the way I got the recessed lighting up here. It's kind of casting 4 different. You can't see it, but it's kind of casting some cool lights. Do you see this? Mm-hmm. On the back side? Anyways, all right, y'all. Here we go. I'm going to try to avoid it. I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try to avoid this. It's going to be really tempting for me to try and guess which one is which. And maybe I will at the end, just to test my own palate. But it's really going to be hard for me to not say, oh, I think this one's definitely wild. You know what I mean? Because I know what they taste like. Or at least I think I do. I'm about to find out. So we'll start right here with number 1. We'll sniff it. We'll taste it. And we'll see what we think. So, right off the rip, you definitely... any and all of these, you're going to get that standard bourbon, vanilla, brown sugar, sweetness. But I do know that, before I taste these, I do know that some of these have different mash bills. For example, you've got Four Roses is in here somewhere. And Four Roses is going to be a mix of, 10 different bourbons that they make in-house. I mean, I think most people know this at this point, but Four Roses has 2 different mash bills, 5 different yeast strains they use to create 10 different whiskeys, and all of their bourbons that they make are a blend of any number of those. Now, I don't want to hold the bottle up because I don't want to see the color of it and make a comparison to the glasses here. But the Four Roses bottle that we're looking at today, the one that's under $30, just their straight bourbon, is a blend of all 10. So you're going to get some of that high rye mash bill in there. So one of these is going to have a little bit more of that rye spice to it. Obviously, Maker's Mark is a wheated. I think some people might not even put it in a lineup like this, but I feel like you kind of have to, just because it is such a household name at this point that anytime you go to the store, you're going to see Maker's Mark, and you're going to want to wonder how it stacks up to the other bourbons on the shelf. But it's a wheated bourbon, so it's not going to be the rye spice in there. You're going to have that subtle wheat flavor that's just really there just to keep the sweetness from being overpowering without adding too many new flavor profiles of its own. So, man. All right, I'm going to start right here with number one. I'm going to try to not make any guesses right off the rip. Okay, you get some nice oak in there. You get that brown sugar is really coming through very strong. And I think, it'll be easier once I start tasting the other ones, but I think I got a little bit more of a higher percentage on this one. One thing to note, the Old Forester that I picked for this lineup is the 100 proof. There is an 86, but that one to me has always just tasted too watered down. So I think you get some bolder flavors and a little bit more value for your purchase if you go with the Old Forester 100 as opposed to the 86. So I'm not saying that's what this is, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting off of this one. You get a little bit of a dryness, like a tannic flavor that kind of sits on the back of your tongue on the palate of this one. Or rather on the finish, excuse me. I'm going to move on to the second one. And right off the rip, this one just smells very different. The nose of this one gives me a little bit more nuttiness, and it's more woody on the nose. Well, this one has a little bit more burn on the nose too. One thing that could be throwing off my smell though is that this is a brand new live edge oak wood table, and so my whole office right now, because this is brand spanking new, smells like oak. So I kind of gotta try and cleanse my my nostrils of that. That is very subtle. Okay, this bites a lot more. That's why I brought up that 100 proof Old Forester is here somewhere. Maybe it's that one, maybe it's not. This is not that. I'm gonna try to avoid making guesses as to what they are, but this is much more subtle. I know you're supposed to avoid the word smooth, but it doesn't bite. It goes down easy. It's crushable. And it doesn't really linger. I'm not getting a lot of finish on this one. You get that woody nose. A sweet, subtle palate. Literally no burn. There's no burn on this. This is a whiskey your grandma can drink. If you're going to Thanksgiving and you had a lot of family showing up and you didn't know what people like, this one here, this tastes like this would be a good choice. Because nobody's going to have a problem with it. Everyone's going to be able to drink that, no problem. My wife doesn't like whiskey, she could probably drink this. That's making me want to say wheated. But I'm really failing at this trying not to guess thing. So, I think you got a high proof right here on this first one. And some bolder flavors that kind of stick with you a little bit. You know, and they're your quintessential bourbon flavors too. It's that corn sweetness, that caramely goodness, the vanilla, the oak. This one, much more subtle. You get a lot of those same flavors, a lot of those same quintessential flavors, but they're sort of muted, you know, and they go down really easy. Crushable. Let's move on to the third. Ooh. I'm going to tell you right off the rip, the nose on this one is much more appealing than the first two. Not that they were bad. This one smells just a lot more complex. I almost get like an amaretto on this. You know, like that candied maraschino cherry or almond. Those flavors are very similar to me, by the way. Amaretto, maraschino cherries, and almonds. They all have that same sort of vibe to me. I get that right up front on the nose of this one, as well as that toffee sweetness. That smells very good. I'm going to say, in terms of just the nose alone, this is the most appealing one so far, by a landslide. That doesn't drink like a high proof point though. That drinks like a high 80, low 90. You know, I almost think this is a... I'm going to sit with that for a second. So I don't think that's a high proof point. That's very drinkable. It's very approachable. But it's got a little bit more complexity to it. I do kind of get that amaretto coming through on the palate as well, not just the nose. It does deliver on that. And it does kind of... It lingers a bit. While this one, the finish was kind of, I don't want to say non-existent, but it was one and done. You taste it, it's gone. Which is probably a good thing if you don't like whiskey and you're just trying it. You could try this and be like, didn't like it. Well, you don't have to taste it for another 15 to 20 seconds. This one lingers, kind of like this one lingered. But this one has a more tannic note on the end. This one is a little more oaky. The amaretto doesn't really stick with it all the way to the finish, I don't think. But you just get that standard bourbon toffee sweetness. That drinks to me like Buffalo Trace. But I don't... I'm doing really bad at the not guessing thing. I'm going to do it. At the end, I'm going to pick which one tastes the best to me. And then I'm going to guess which ones all of these are. But let's move on here to number 4. So far, I got to say, let me just pause before we get into the last 2. If I'm going to rank these, I'm going to slide them out to you for being the best. This is number 1. This is number 3. This is number 2. If I had to, like, right now, just call it and say, what are your top picks? I'd go number 1, number 2, number 3. This one is just really muted. It's very timid. So that one to me, I kind of like bolder flavors. It's not bad by any stretch. It's definitely on the table. It's in the 5. But so far, that's going to take last place. But let's move on to number 4. Ooh. Oh, that's good. That's really good. I definitely get, not that amaretto vibe. With this one, I get like toffee roasted peanuts. That's what I'm getting real strong right here on the nose. Is toffee roasted peanuts. And that crunchy exterior. And then when you get to the bottom of the bag and it's just the crumbs that are left behind, dude, that's like, that should be illegal with how good it is. That's what I get on the nose of this. Toffee roasted peanuts. A sweetness, but also a roasty character, you know? And definitely plenty of oak coming through on that as well. All right, I'm excited to taste it. Ooh. I definitely get a higher proof point on this. This tastes, this drinks more like number 1. So in terms of the proof point, I think this is more in line with this here. This one tasted like maybe the lowest proof point. This one high 80s, low 90s. This one tastes like it's around the 100, which is going to make it hard for me to not make a guess. Definitely get that toffee roasted peanut on the palate. Definitely get a toffee roasted peanut right there on the palate. 100%. That transfers all the way to the taste quite well. I get a little bit of spice at the end of it. Not so much on the palate, but on the finish. I get a little bit of that spice. It's not... I don't think this one has a high rye content, but there's some in there. You get a little bit of that burn, that spice, that black peppercorn kind of a vibe on it. But yeah, that roasted toffee vibe, for sure. This is going to be hard on me to make a final decision. I'm going to go in on the last one here. I'm interested to see how wrong I am on some of these. You know what I mean? You always get to the end of a blind and you're like, dude, I was so far off. And the funny thing is, it has a tendency to weed out your biases. Okay, there's definitely a bias that you get. If one time you drank a whiskey, you loved it, and so when you see that label, you attribute it with a good experience, with a positive experience. So when you stack it up next to another whiskey, but you know what's in the bottle, you know what's in the glass, it kind of skews your perception of everything. So that's the interesting part about blinds, is it forces you to be objective. But also, the other interesting part about a blind is there's other random variables as well, where you could come back and do the same blind again and come up with a different outcome, you know, and land on a different ranking. And it could depend on what you had to eat that day or what the room smells like. You know, there's lots of different variables and factors that could play a role. Which one you tasted first as opposed to which one you tasted last. You know, all of those things are variables that could sort of skew the outcome here. I'm going to go in on this last one. Hang on. Man, that's tough. Now this one, when comparing it apples to apples, you know, sip for sip, this one's actually drinking better than I remembered it. This is a real challenge. This one is still... That one's still unobjectively here. The amaretto vibes off this one. Yeah. So let's review for a second what's on the table here. We know that one of these is Old Forester 100. We know that one of these is Maker's Mark, which is a wheated bourbon. We know that one of these is Wild Turkey 101. And Four Roses is the other. Four Roses is on the table too. That one's a mixed mash bill. This is really hard for me to pick a favorite. So this is the challenge here. I'm going to move this one back to 4th. This one's in 5th. This is 4th. It's these three right here. 1, 3, and 4. These are the ones I'm having a hard time ranking right now, because they're all drinking really, really good. Different flavor profiles for sure. I'm going to fall off the log. I'm going to say it's like just unapologetically it is what it is up front. And then it waves goodbye and says, no, I'm good. I'm on my way now. Watch me be dead wrong. Watch that be Four Roses with rye in it. See, now that I'm thinking about it, that could be Four Roses, and maybe that's the Maker's Mark. Both of them are pretty chill. And I know that Four Roses drinks very chill. These are the three that I like the most. My challenge right now is ranking the three. Man. I feel like these two here are both high proof points, which makes me feel like one of them is Wild Turkey 101 and one of them is Old Forester 100. And this one to me, going back in, I almost even get like a when I went in for that sip, I got green apple on the nose. It's interesting how things change as you go along. Alright, I'm on the cusp of making a choice. I'm on the cusp. This is really hard for me, because I think that all three of these are phenomenal. In terms of like value, knowing that I spent under $30 for all three of these, feels like I got away with a steal. So I'm going to make a final choice on these three. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? So, there you have it. That's my official ranking. Whatever number 1 is, I think that's the best of the lot. I think that takes first place. Number 3, whatever number 3 is, I think that takes second place among the lot. Whatever number 4 is, I think that takes third place. But all three of these are phenomenal. Like, I would not be disappointed with any one of these bottles. These three here are just fantastic. This is more like, you know, this than it is this. They're like neck and neck and neck. You know what I'm saying? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my official ranking. Okay? So what I'll do is I'll put those... Probably here. There's a lot of negative space here. I'll put my unobjective ranking right here. The way that I ranked them in the blind. And now here's my vow to you. I will be honest. I'll read what they actually are, and then I'll show you my biased ranking. If I were to rank them without doing a blind, if I were just to tell you, oh, this is how I rank these 5, and we'll see if it's different. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you what I think they are. I think I was wrong on that one. Alright, this is what I think. I swear to you, I promise you, if I get all 5 of these right, you're going to be like, I don't believe him. If I get them all wrong, you're not going to care. But if I get them right, you're going to be like, I don't believe him. I don't have a clue what's in these glasses, man. I don't have a clue. But I'm going to guess Wild Turkey 101. I think the glass number 1 is Wild Turkey 101. I think glass number 3 is Buffalo Trace. I think glass number 4 is Old Forester 100. I think glass number 5 is Maker's Mark. And I think that glass number 2 is Four Roses. And I actually really like, let me be clear. The fact that this ranked 5th place does not mean I don't like it. I think this is delicious. I think they're all delicious. But in terms of having a unique flavor profile and being what I'm looking for in a bourbon, if I'm going to spend money on it, I think this one's, of these 5, going to take 5th place. Doesn't mean I'm ever going to be displeased with the bottle of. But that's what I think. Wild Turkey 101, Buffalo Trace, Old Forester 100, Maker's Mark, and Four Roses. And I know I came around to this because initially I thought this was Maker's. But I think it was just because it was so timid. In stark contrast, I drank it second. And it's a stark contrast from Wild Turkey 101, if I'm right about those things. But there you go. That's my ranking, and those are my guesses. Do you want to see? Let's see how I did? Oh, man. I know I probably butchered these. I just know I butchered these. You ready? So, let's start with number 1. I said number 1 was Wild Turkey 101. Your boy nailed it, baby. He nailed it. Wild Turkey 101. It took me a second, but I did get there. And I told you right off the rip. I said this drink's like a high proof point, and the Wild Turkey 101 is the highest proof point on the table. So I did get that right. I told you that number 2, which was my last place, was Four Roses. Your boy was right. I'm 2 for 2 so far. I'm actually kind of impressed. But also I feel like this might be, depending how the rest of these 3 play out, this could be also sort of validating my palate. Because I've had questions, you're like, I think I can nail these in a blind, I think I can nail these. But then you have your doubts, like, but could I? Is my palate really as good as I think it is? I thought I would do decent in this blind, because these are always on my shelf. They really are. Which is why I recommended them to you. But Wild Turkey 101 is my number 1 pick. I think that is just, in terms of bang for your buck, best value out there. Let's move on to number 3. I said Buffalo Trace. Drumroll, please. It's Buffalo Trace, baby! Ah, let's go! Like I said, I told you amaretto. I always get that amaretto. The one thing I've never gotten before, though, which I am getting now, is a little bit of green apple on the nose. I've never gotten green apple on the nose of Buffalo Trace before. And I don't know why I'm getting it right now, but I am getting it 100%. Let's keep going. If I got this one right, it means I'm 5 for 5. Y'all ready? I said it was Old Forester. I told you number 4 was Old Forester. Your boy nailed it. Your boy nailed it, baby! I'm 5 for 5! Are you kidding me? So, Old Forester 100, like I said, it's up there. It is 100% up there. And this right here was so close to me. I mean, I would not be surprised if I went a different direction on a different day. Tomorrow I might have done the same blind. I could have had this reversed. You know what I mean? But, Old Forester 100, in terms of the, like I said, avoid the 86. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think the 86 is worth the price. There's the 86. It's not like it's a bad bourbon, but in terms of value, I don't see myself restocking that bottle when I kill it. At least not anytime soon. I would avoid the 86. If you're going to buy a bottle of Old Forester for under $30, get the 100. Do yourself a favor. It's just more flavor. You got your barrel proof, 115, 116, 120 range for coming out of the barrel. They water it down, obviously, to dilute it a bit and bring that proof point down to make it more palatable. But with the Old Forester 100, they just do it less. So some of those flavors are able to come through more strongly. And if you were to dilute it down to the 86 proof point, you're just not going to get a lot of those same flavors. If you want to take those flavors and elevate them even further, 1920. Old Forester, 1920. In my opinion, if you're going to be spending less than $80 on a bottle of Old Forester, I'll probably do a mid-shelf episode too. That's probably the next thing I'll do. Well, probably, maybe. One of the next things I do is probably going to be a mid-shelf. This was the bottom shelf bourbons. This is going to be a part of the conversation because for me, 1920 is one of the absolute best value middle shelf purchases you could ever make. The other one that I would definitely say, Wild Turkey, Rare Breed. You've had the 101 ranked number 1. You know, Wild Turkey 101 ranked number 1 in my blind. Rare Breed is this kicked up several notches. So this is one of those bottles that I always have to have on the shelf. So much so, you look at how much is left. This shelf here is my open bottles. Let me show you something. Your boy has a brand new bottle unopened in the closet because I know that when this one goes dry, I'm going to be sad. So I had to grab an extra bottle so that when this one gets killed, I've got a backup. So, anyways, we're getting away from ourselves. That's definitely going to be present in the mid-shelf episode. I'm actually really curious to see how the 1920 and Rare Breed go toe-to-toe in a blind, and I will do that. But obviously, moving on, I told you Old Forester, number 4. I told you number 5 was Maker's Mark. That makes perfect sense. The reason that I called this Four Roses later is because as I got through all 5 of them and came back, I could definitely taste some of that rye spice. And one of the mash bills in Four Roses is a high rye mash bill. So I was getting that. I think 101 kind of blew out my palate a little bit when I first came to this. It tasted so timid in comparison that I just called it a weeded. But then I did have a change of heart as I got to number 5. And this one definitely tasted like a weeded to me. And it is. I was 5 for 5 on my guesses. Does that mean that I was a little biased in my ranking because I thought I knew what they were? Maybe. To say, I know what's in these bottles. That's why I would love to do a true blind sometime with some of these bottom shelves. And maybe that's what I'll do. I think, you know what? I'm launching a Patreon for this channel. You can sponsor bottles if you're like, listen, I really want you to try my favorite whiskey. It's a Scotch. It's a Canadian blend. It's a single malt from Japan. It's an Irish. Whatever it is. You know, whatever your favorite bottle is. Maybe it's a craft distiller. You can sponsor a bottle, and I'll try and get a hold of it. So if you support on Patreon, I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. It's close to being up and running, but it's not yet as of the second that I'm recording this. So no promises. But I will have a Patreon up and running with different sort of reward tiers. I'd love to have like a little whiskey community, you know? A lot of you guys know me from my channel that really launched my career on YouTube, which is a gaming channel. I've been doing that for almost a decade now. I do that full time. It supports me and my wife and my kids and my new office. You know, we built a full 3-story addition all because of the gaming channel's success. And that kind of freed me up to do some more creative things that I'm just interested in. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is whiskey. And one of the things I'm going to cover on this channel is not just whiskey tastings, but I also want to do whiskey cocktails. Whiskey history fascinates me. I've read now, probably a dozen different books on the history of whiskey. I'm rambling, but that's what I do when I drink. You guys made me drink 5 whiskeys. So what did you expect? Anyways, that's my ranking. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up, 100% honesty, the way that I would have ranked these if I didn't know what they were, okay? So the way that if before I did the blind, the way I would have ranked these is Wild Turkey 101 in first place, I would have told you. I would have told you Buffalo Trace in second place, just like I did today. But then everything else changes. These were my top 2 with a, if I knew what the bottles were, if you would have asked me before I did the blind. But then Four Roses would have taken number 3. I really like Four Roses. It's interesting to me that I ranked that in 5th place, especially when after the fact I guessed what they were correctly. But in a blind, I had to be objective and tell you what in the moment I liked the most. But anyways, normally I take Four Roses over Old Forester 100, but today they got flip-flopped. While I did guess 5 for 5, I did rank them differently in an objective blind, which is interesting. It makes me want to reconsider some things. But hey, that's the episode. But I want to know, how would you rank these? Where would you put these? So, next time you're out at the store, if you're like, man, I need to get some whiskey on the shelf, what should I buy? I recommend all 5 of these But the very number one best purchase you can make for that price point, in my opinion, is Wild Turkey 101. It's got the proof point. It's got the bold flavors, not just bottom shelf. And this is without a blind. But in my humble opinion, Wild Turkey has some of the best bang for your buck whiskeys out there, period. Save for one, which I'll get to in a different episode. But almost all Wild Turkey whiskeys that you could buy are phenomenal, and I highly recommend them. There's one that I don't. I'll get to that later. Maybe I'll do a distillery review. Four Roses. Listen, if you're going to spend money on Four Roses, this one is fantastic. Four Roses small batch, don't buy it. Four Roses small batch select. Buy it, baby. That's delicious stuff. Then you got Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace has some incredible products. Incredible products out there for you to try. Again, maybe one day I'll do a distillery review, but I'll need some folks to sponsor some bottles if I do that. Because some of these things, listen, Buffalo Trace for me in Michigan, their distributor is so unfriendly with Michigan. It is so hard to get any Buffalo Trace products here in Michigan. So hard. This is the only thing I can get regularly. There's a few different liquor stores within an 18-minute drive from me that do stock this at different times. So I just call around to see who has a bottle, and then I go buy it. But Eagle Rare, good freaking luck. Like, nobody's stocking Eagle Rare near me. Nobody's stocking Weller near me. I have to have those things shipped to me. And then Blanton's. There's a guy near me that was selling a bottle of just the standard Blanton's for $200. And I told him he was dreaming, and I walked out the store. This guy, I haven't gone back to that liquor store since because I think that guy is nuts, and he marks up everything way higher than anyone else. But he's like, I got a bottle of Blanton's. I'm going to put a $200 price tag on it. I was like, buddy, you dreaming. But Buffalo Trace products are just phenomenal. Old Forester, like I said, a little 50-50 for me on Old Forester. Some of the bottles I would not buy, but the ones that I would buy, I'd buy every day. I mean, 1920, Old Forester 1920, I think is one of the absolute best bangs for your buck. That's a delicious bottle that I would never pass up. I'm going to always have a bottle of that on my shelf. And then you've got Maker's Mark. And to their credit, if you were to ask me outside of a blind, consistently, if I dig this stuff, I'd say it's all right. But I'm not going to go out of my way to buy a lot of Maker's Mark, except some of the more limited release stuff that they do is actually pretty good. There you go. All of these bottles would be a fine purchase. This one's the best, though. Highly recommend. I hope you enjoyed the blind. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you. We should end with a toast. With our number one, the Wild Turkey 101. So, here's my toast. May you live richly. As we pour these whiskeys today, may you pour love and care into the people that you care about in your life, your family, your loved ones, your children, especially your children if you have them. Just like whiskey, may you get better with age. So cheers to you and yours. Thanks for stopping by the channel today. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining me in my office. I look forward to hanging out with you again real soon.